Hello and welcome to another episode of Coffee Break Blogging. Today on our coffee break, we're going to start talking about blog traffic. This is stage 4 of our overall 7-stage process, and we talked about that in the last episode, in our pit stop episode 86. So today we're actually going to talk about traffic, but today I want to give you an analogy, and we're going to talk about why blog traffic is actually a lot like rice. Now, let me explain this. This is actually an analogy that I first heard from Ryan Dice. I was over at Traffic and Conversion Summit in San Diego, and this is something that I was thinking before that, but then the way that he put it was just really, really simple, and I really like the analogy. So that's what I'm going to relay to you today. Here's the thing. When it comes to building traffic with our blogs, we tend to think about various, what I call now, old school ways of doing it. Now, I call them old school because people have been talking about them forever. And I am in a position to know because I've been doing this a really long time, and I've also been teaching other bloggers for going on 6 years now, almost 7. So a lot of the advice that people are giving now to build traffic, they were still talking about back then. And we're talking about things like guest posting, things like going out and trying to get backlinks, tweeting, Facebooking, going out into social media groups and engaging with them and maybe dropping a few links to your blog. Some people go out and they comment on other blogs to get traffic. Some people go out and try to be everywhere by being on YouTube and putting out videos and maybe even doing podcasting. And here's the thing. It's not as if those things don't work. Now, some of them don't work as well as they used to. For example, guest posting. Guest posting can work well, but you've really got to nail that blog post, and it needs to be in front of the perfect audience. In my case, I haven't guest posted in a while, and the reason why is because I found that the effectiveness of it wasn't nearly what it used to be. I used to guest post on ProBlogger.net, and if you've been a ProBlogger, you notice they got a lot of guest posting going on. The thing is, that site used to bring a fair amount of traffic. Now, it really doesn't. You don't get a lot of traffic or a lot of opt-ins or really any measurable important metric by guest posting on sites like that. Now, I'm not saying that that's an across-the-board thing. It's just that guest posting is now not the novelty that it used to be. So there's a lot more people trying to do it, and therefore a lot of sites have just shut down from doing guest posting. They get really, really selective, and it's just a more difficult thing than it used to be, and you've really got to nail it, Now, if you're doing things like posting a lot and trying to SEO your stuff, again, it still works, but it's a long game. A very long game. And there's so many more people out there on the internet creating great content. A lot of the times they're creating content better than you are. And they're all competing for that space in the Google search results just like you are. So it's a long game, a fairly difficult game to SEO your way to the top and to do it totally organically. But and also we talk about social media and tweeting and Facebooking and all these things in order to bring traffic to our sites is very much a long game. It still works. It's just that it's a long-term effort, and it can be very frustrating to try to get respectable traffic numbers in your blog simply by doing those things. So the theme here is that the old ways, or let's just say the long, age-old ways of growing traffic to our blogs, it's not as if they don't work. It's just that they're very long-winded. They take a very long time, and it frustrates a lot of people. Now, let's move to today and how things work today. Keep in mind, all that other stuff that we just talked about still works. It's just that it takes a really long time. So what doesn't take as long? Well, that's where we get into the world of paid traffic, to really be able to invest a little bit of money and reliably and predictably get the traffic that you paid for. And that brings us back to the analogy on why blog traffic is like rice. Here's the thing. If you want a bowl of rice, good old Uncle Ben's, you are probably not going to go out and buy a plot of land and put seeds in the ground. I don't actually really know how rice works. I'm just going to come up with this off the top of my head. So put seeds in the ground, grow that rice. I think they sit in that wet, marshy stuff because I've seen pictures of people picking the rice in those fields. Cultivate the rice, prepare the rice, and then after that, boil it and turn it into a bowl of rice. Are you going to do that? I mean, we're talking a multi-month affair to get that bowl of rice. Or will you simply go down to the grocery store and buy it in a box? Buy a box of Uncle Ben's, boil it in 5 minutes, and you got yourself a bowl of rice. Chances are you're going to do the second one. You're going to go to the store. Now, the old way, all the stuff that we talked about here, is essentially would be like going and trying to grow your own rice. You're cultivating your own field, you're picking it, you're doing all the agricultural stuff, whatever is involved in growing rice, but it's a lot of work, whatever it is. And you're doing all that stuff. That's essentially the analogy of what most blog owners are doing with their blogs. Versus other people who simply go to the store and buy it in a nice, pretty package. So that is why blog traffic today is a lot like rice, because you can simply go and buy it. You can go to the traffic store and buy it. And the traffic stores are known as Facebook, Google, Twitter. I think LinkedIn's got an ad program. I think Pinterest has one now. Any site out there that is selling traffic, you can go to the traffic store and simply buy that traffic. Now, here's the thing. How do you afford it? How are you going to do this without it just taking all of your money? Well, that's where the monetization comes in. And that's why I really talk about monetization so much at the Blog Marketing Academy. It's not just because we want to make money with our blog. It's also because it literally funds your own growth. You have to monetize first before you can really reliably grow your blog and grow your audience, because it self-feeds. That revenue, you can circle it back around and fund your paid traffic. Because if you're not doing that, then you're going to automatically react to the idea of paid traffic by thinking, well, that's expensive, I can't afford it, whatever, and I don't blame you if you're blog is structurally set up to operate at a loss, and most blogs are. But you need to set this stuff up in such a way to where you can do paid traffic. Now, if you are just sitting on money and you can invest that money and set things up, then fine, that's great. But many people out there are not in a situation where they're just okay with feeding money into Facebook. They're going to want to have some, pretty decent idea that you're going to make it back. At the very least, you want to at least break even on that. And that's where the monetization, having an actual structure, an actual funnel set up to allow you to make back your advertising spending. Or actually make money in the process. This is how you can actually make money and grow your list and grow your audience and make money while you do it. But let's say even if you're just breaking even, here's the thing. If you could spend $1 and reliably bring in a certain number of people to your blog, but you know that the metrics work out that you're going to make back that dollar, you can grow your blog all day long and do it very reliably if you know that you're not going to lose money doing it. This is your solution to not having the growth of your traffic and your audience take forever. And it probably will if you're not doing any paid traffic. All the old school ways we talked about at the beginning, they do work, but they are a long game. Don't think of them as free, because they're not free. You're investing a poop load of time into it. Let's just call it that. And your time is not free. If you think of your time as free, you've got to get over that one really quick, because that's not a mindset for success if you don't value your own time. So don't think of those ways that you're not putting money into things as free. They're definitely not free. It's not free for you to write a killer guest blog post and send it to another blog. It takes you a lot of time to do that. It's not free for you to make a bunch of YouTube videos in the hopes that they're going to promote your blog. It takes a lot of time to do that. Not saying you shouldn't do it, by the way, but it just takes a lot of time. And we've got to keep that in perspective. Now, if you are willing to put a little bit of money into it, you can shortcut the entire thing. And I personally think that these days, the proper combination of traffic to your blog is a combination of paid traffic and the quote-unquote free ways. The free ways, I'll call them the organic ways, they do work. It's just that they take a little bit of time. I've used the analogy before of if you've ever driven a manual transmission, a car with a clutch, and if you sit down, start the car, put it into fifth gear, and try to start that car moving down the road, what's probably going to happen? You're going to stall. The car is just going to stall. The engine's going to die because there's just not enough torque there in order to get that car moving. You've got to put that thing into first gear and then second and work your way up in order to not have the car stall out. It works the same way with our blogs. If you try to do fifth gear style activities right off the get-go and think it's going to do everything, it can stall, and your traffic will stall, and your growth will stall. It will take a really, really long time. Whereas paid traffic is kind of like that first and second and third gear. You can get that inertia. You can get things moving. It doesn't take very long. Literally, if you give money to Facebook for traffic, you're going to get the traffic, okay? It's not like there's a doubt. You're going to get what you paid for. It's a matter of what happens to them when they get to your site, okay? So you build that inertia up, get a little bit of movement going with that paid traffic, and then your free organic traffic stuff starts taking over and you build that inertia. And then eventually you get to a point where you don't need to do paid traffic. Now, if you're smart, you probably still will and maintain that combination between the two, but you're going to have that inertia. You're going to have traffic coming whether you pay for it or not. That's where you want to head. It's just that we've got to get ourselves to that point first. Okay? So that's why blog traffic is a lot like rice and how blog traffic really has evolved. We can't play the same games that we were playing back in 2009 and act like they work as well today as they used to. They really don't. Okay. Now, to this point, I want to invite you to our webinar, blogmonetizationwebinar.com, because everything that we just talked about on this podcast has everything to do with what I'm talking about on that webinar, the blog monetization webinar. Because as I said earlier, monetization is your key to being able to fund your paid traffic. The monetization is not just something like, hey, I've got a nice blog going. How do I get money out of it? No, most people are still at a point where they're trying to grow to begin with. And the monetization actually leads to that. It funds our ability to actually run paid traffic. And that creates this circle in a way where it's going to grow. You're going to get that inertia with the blog. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about, the structure that you need to set up so that you can actually do this. And that's at blogmonetizationwebinar.com. I encourage you to go grab your seat. It's totally free training, and we're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be a good, valuable hour of your time. I promise you that. Okay? All right, thank you very much for listening to this episode. In the next one, we're going to start talking a little bit about free traffic versus paid and kind of compare some of the things between them, okay? So that'll be coming up on episode 88. It'll be a little bit of a smackdown between free traffic and paid. And I will see you then. Talk to you soon.